we are not going to give due consideration to whatever concerns countries like, let's say, for example, the US may have over Iran.
US has its own intricate problems with Iran. But irrespective of that, certainly we are part of the international the world order, and then we will play our part internationally.
Sri Lanka was or continues to maintain its non-aligned foreign policy. Is that something that now we are looking to change, or is that something that we need to change?
Now we are mainly referring to the non-alignment pertaining to military alliances.
Sri Lanka seems to be taking a step more towards India and changing decisions when it requires, just to pacify India.
We have always said that we will give priority to India's security concerns. So I don't think that's anything wrong with that.
Is there a risk factor here where when Indian politicians use Sri Lanka quite often for their political agendas?
But I think politicians they say a lot of things, even including in Sri Lanka and during election times, and some of these things are not very realistic, and so we don't need to overly worry about the items.
Hearing reports of these Cold Wars have led to their intelligence agencies coming into Sri Lanka.
We work very closely with the military intelligence and also the foreign ministries represented in the National Security Council. So it's discussed at that level.
Hello and welcome to another episode of On Fire here on Daily Mirror. I'm Easwaran Rutnam. The recent visit of the Iranian president to Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka's relations, of course, with India and China, and how Sri Lanka is dealing with the issue in Gaza are some of the matters that are drawing Sri Lanka's attention, both locally and internationally as well. So I thought I'll maybe discuss Sri Lanka's foreign policy. How are we facing it? Are we going on the right track? And on the program today to discuss all this is State Minister of Foreign Affairs, Tharaka Balasuriya. Minister, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Minister, to kickstart the program, I'd just like to ask you about the trajectory of Sri Lanka's foreign policy. Are we on the right track? Are we taking the right decisions when it comes to Sri Lanka's foreign policy?
I believe so. I believe that with the new president taking over, the interaction in our foreign policy has yielded very positive results all over. I would think that if you look at the recent events, for example, not too many countries have been able to, for example, participate in the combined maritime forces in the Red Sea operations, and then also be able to send their workers to Israel, and at the same time have a visit by a foreign dignitary such as the president of Iran. So I would think that this goes to show that the multifaceted Sri Lankan foreign policy is gaining results.
I guess the other question is if the invitation extended to the Iranian president was well thought out, considering the image that he has these days globally. Is that something that you feel might later backfire?
No, I think certain political parties have the idea. They think that you can call a world leader and say Machang, you can come anytime you want, or Machang, we can't pay our debts. We need to reschedule the debts. They tend to think that foreign policy works on that basis, but it doesn't happen that way. And when you want to get head of state to come to Sri Lanka, you need to send the invitation well in advance, and come then act on mutually agreed upon dates. So the invitation to the Iranian president didn't take place immediately. It was certainly before these events took place pertaining to the Red Sea. And also, Iran has been a friendly country towards Sri Lanka. So, irrespective of what other countries have, whatever the issues they have with Iran, I think we as a sovereign country need to maintain our friendships with other countries.
So is that to say that we are not going to give due consideration to whatever concerns countries like, let's say, for example, the US may have over Iran? It's more about who we want to maintain relationships with, is it?
No, I mean, U.S. has its own intricate problems with Iran, but irrespective of that, certainly we are part of the international the world order, and then we will play our part internationally. But that doesn't mean that, for example, we can't have relationship with other countries, or we need to have relationship with only countries which the United States tells us to have relationship. So I don't really see it as being a hindrance to our relationship with the United States, which is, of course, very important to us. The Iranian president visiting Sri Lanka. But what I was trying to explain was the invitation to the president of Iran. It's something
Extend that further.
which went well in advance, well in before all the issues in the Red Sea took place. So I don't think we need to, in that regard. We need to have our own foreign policy, and we need to have our own friends. And Sri Lanka follows a foreign policy where we are friendly towards all nations.
And I'm going to talk about that as well. I mean, Sri Lanka was or continues to maintain its non-aligned foreign policy. Is that something that now we are looking to change, or is that something that we need to change?
No, I don't think so. I think we need to have an underlined foreign policy, but we also need to understand that the when you refer to the non-alignment, okay, now you're mainly referring to the non-alignment pertaining to military alliances. Now, earlier during the Cold War days, when you say non-aligned, the both camps were economically and politically they were divided. But now it's not the case. So in one sense, we are multi-aligned. Let's take if it's the solar alliances, and if you feel that we need to join the solar alliance in order for the benefit of Sri Lanka, we should join the solar alliance. So now, as I explained, we joined the combined marine operations in the Red Sea because we feel that it's very important to have the freedom of navigation in those troubled waters. And if there is no freedom of navigation, Sri Lanka imports twice as much as Sri Lanka exports, then countries such as Sri Lanka would have to pay a high price. So it's in our interest to join the combined maritime operations in the Red Sea. So that's why, even in a small scale, we joined it. And depending on the needs, so we are also multi-aligned. But when it comes to military alliances, we are non-aligned.
And how is our relationship with China? I see reports that Sri Lanka seems to be taking a step more towards India and changing decisions when it requires just to pacify India. Is that something good? Is that hurting our relationship with China, who has in the past been very helpful? to Sri Lanka in some extent?
China is an extremely important country to Sri Lanka and a long trusted. We have a time-tested friendship with China. But I don't think you need to look at the relationship with India and China relative to one another. Perhaps I think in the recent past there might have been bumps in the relationship between both India and China. So I don't think we really need to look at it relative to one another. We have our very strong relationship with India, and we have very strong in relationship with China also. But we have always said that we will give priority to India's security concerns. So I don't think that's anything wrong with that. But also, certainly, we want to develop the relationship with China economically, such as we are working very hard for the Sinopec, the oil refinery to take place in Hambantota. We are looking at other options such as the extending the Kumin, Mandala, Rangoon, the trade routes to Hambantota and then to Africa. So I think the China's relationship has its own dynamics, and I don't think our relationship with China currently is we are facing any bumps. So just because we have good relationship with India, I don't think we need to measure it relatively. Let's say few years ago there were little bumps with the relationship with China pertaining to the fertilizer ship and all that. Now I think all those things have been sorted, and we have an excellent relationship with China, and it's a time tested friendship, and we value the development work that China has carried out in Sri Lanka.
So we are not taking decisions based on what India likes, is it? If India is not happy with certain decisions when it comes to China, we don't decide on that.
We look at Sri Lanka's interest first and foremost, but as I mentioned, we also look at India's security interest. Uh, as one Indian, the foreign secretary stated at one time, India views Sri Lanka um, as an aircraft carrier off the coast of India. Now we have seen we can say we are sovereign country and all that, but we have seen what has happened to in the case between Ukraine and Russia. What has happened? There was a fear from the Russian side that the NATO is expanding towards Russia, and then due to that fear, this war took place. So we certainly don't want the Indians to have any fear pertaining to Sri Lanka, thinking that another foreign country is going to use Sri Lanka for any military advantage, which is not the case. But certainly, we would want to trade with other countries, not just with India and China. We see that the world becoming a more of a multipolar system, so we want to trade with other emerging countries such as Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and other emerging, and certainly countries in the African continent. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but we also want to have our traditional relationships, which we have had with the West and the Middle Eastern countries. So, given how Sri Lanka's economy is performing, I don't think we can eliminate people. I think, for example, when it comes to worker remittances, Middle Eastern countries are absolutely important. When it comes to export, the European Union and the United States is extremely important. When it comes to, let's say, some sort of a cushioning factor on political issues, on international fora, the Russia and China has always stood by Sri Lanka. So when it comes to development and investment works, both India and China are equally important. So we need to engage. Being an island nation, we need to engage in different channels and different setups with all countries, and not just with one country.
So you wouldn't say that we are over dependent on a country like India. I mean, India keeps saying it has this neighborhood first policy. So
Yeah,
whenever we are in a crisis, they always jump on board to help us out. But there is this concern that, in the long run, India, if
yeah.
required, can always hold us to ransom because they've always assisted us when required. So is that risk factor there? Is that something that you would think of or consider?
I wouldn't say that it's a over depends dependency on India, and in certain areas, I think, let's say when it comes to exports, certainly I feel that we need to find other markets also, because we are largely dependent on the European market and the European market and the American market. Now, it wasn't India's duty or responsibility to come to Sri Lanka's help when we were going through the financial issues in 2022. It was part of it. Part of the reason why India came to help Sri Lanka was due to the Prime Minister Modi's the neighborhood first foreign policy. Ideally, in such circumstances, it should be institutions such as the IMF that should be coming in to help Sri Lanka. But we all know there is those mechanisms take a little bit of time, and then we need to appreciate the role which India played. But having said that, we need to put ourselves in a strong wicket, so that we would never have to go back to the situation that we were in 2022, for example. So we need to be smart enough in order to do that. But in certain areas, such as the exports, and we need to diversify our markets. Uh, so I don't in certain areas I do think that there can be an over dependency, but we need to rectify, and that's not something which can be done in a day or two. That has to be done over a period of time.
Now we see the Kachetiu issue being mentioned a lot in India these days with elections coming up, especially in Tamil Nadu, and even Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also mentioned this.
Yeah.
Is there a risk factor here where when Indian politicians use Sri Lanka quite often for their political agendas, that somewhere down the line they might take a decision if they are in power, which may, hurt Sri Lanka?
No, as far as we are concerned, the Kachedev issue was solved in 1974. The comment made by the Prime Minister Modi was not against Sri Lanka. It was analysis of the historical events and how he sees it turned out. And even I think before 1974, the Kachedev, the islands were taken three times for during bilateral discussions. Once was about the fishing rights of the Indian fishermen. The second time it was when the Royal Navy, when Sri Lanka was a dominion of the United Kingdom. The Royal Navy used to use the islands as a place for bombing, and it was taken up for discussion. And the third time was when there was an inflow of smugglers using the island as a safe haven. But during all these discussions, that the sovereignty was never discussed. So I think even as far back as the Portuguese, the sovereignty of the island has been established with Sri Lanka, and I don't think it will change. And when you say that when they come to power, the BJP is already in power, so and there has never been and this has never been taken on formal diplomatic discussions.
The reason I mentioned when they come to power is because certain Tamil Nadu political parties have mentioned that if they come to power with the support of Congress, that they would take back Kachetivu. I mean, there's no mention of how they're going to take back, or whether that's a realistic comment, but is that something that we don't really take seriously?
No, I mean, we take everything, we monitor the situation, and we take everything seriously. But I think politicians say a lot of things, even including in Sri Lanka and during election times. And some of these things are not very realistic, and so we don't need to overly worry about the Achadiv Islands.
The other issue is of course about this Cold War between countries like India and China, India and Pakistan, the US and Russia. And we are hearing reports of these Cold Wars have led to their intelligence agencies coming into Sri Lanka and trying to monitor each other. Is the foreign ministry aware of this? I know the military intelligence is. Is the foreign ministry aware? And how does Sri Lanka deal with this sort of situation? Is that a concern?
We work very closely with the military intelligence and also the foreign ministries represented in the National Security Council. So it's discussed at that level.
And I also wanted to speak about Gaza. We see a lot of concerns being raised locally that that Sri Lanka is not doing enough when it comes to the Palestinian issue. We as a country are pro-Palestinian, yes, but are we doing enough to draw attention to help out the people in Palestine and to stand for their rights?
Yeah, I mean, what more can we do? We haven't still restructured our debt, but nonetheless, we were able to have the Children of Gaza Fund, and we were able to raise US dollars $1 million, USD $1 million, and given the circumstances which we are in, we are not a rich country. We haven't restructured our debt yet, but even being in this stage, the Palestine and and Gaza are very important to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has always supported the cause of Palestine. Whatever government comes to power, I have the fullest confidence that Sri Lanka will always support the people of Palestine, and we will always advocate the two state solution. But now, having said that, it doesn't mean that just because we support the cause of Palestine, it doesn't mean we have to support Hamas. So we need to support the Houthis. We can support the people of Palestine and the Palestinian cause without supporting Hamas or the Houthis. So I think that's where we stand, and we will always support the people of Palestine. And if we can, certainly in raise more money for the people of Palestine, I'm sure we will do whatever it takes to help the people, although we are going through a very difficult period ourselves.
Finally, Minister, I just want to ask you a political question. Elections is something that Sri Lanka is talking about, and who is going to support who is going to contest. That is a big topic these days. You, of course, are a member of the SLPP, but you are, and the SLPP is also supporting Ranil Wickremesinghe in this cabinet. How do you see Ranil Wickremesinghe's performance as a president and as a party? Where would the party head when it comes to elections?
Well, we got a somewhat of a hint where the direction the SLPP is heading during the group meeting, which the President Mahinda Rajapaksa and the former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and the current President Ranil Wickremesinghe both took part. So I think that in future there will be a political alliance. So and with a broad spectrum of parties, not just SLPP, SLFP, and some other parties, CWC, supporting the president. I think by all means that we have to appreciate, and we also have to accept the fact that the current president has stabilized the country. I wouldn't say that we are completely out of the woods, but we have come a long way within a short period of time, considering where we were in 2022. I also think that it is important that the continuation of the of policies and political reforms take place. And it's only if the center left and the center right come together that we will be able to push this through. Particularly the political reforms. I think everybody talks about the economic reforms, uh, but not just the economic reforms. I believe that the political reforms also need to take place. So in order to do that, I think everybody, not just the SLPP, needs to support the current agenda, at least for a short period. So, and I hope not just the SLPP, but I also hope the SJB and also the NPP rally around this cause, and then everybody gets together for the betterment of the country.
Thank you, Minister. It was good talking to you. Thank you for your time and the opportunity given to discuss a number of issues really regarding Sri Lanka's foreign policy. Once again, thank you for
Thank you for
joining us.
having me. Thank you for having me.
And that's all the time we have for you for On Fire for this week. Till next time, stay safe.